Hi, my name is Shatoya with the Las Vegas IT Management Podcast. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Steve LeBoeuf, which I'm super excited to get to know you a little bit more as a technology advisor. Hi, how are you doing today, Steve?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Shatoya. It's great to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited. So thank you. Steve, can you share a bit about your background and how you became a technology advisor?
Sure. Well, my background's pretty interesting. I have a pretty varied background, holding positions across many lines of work. I've done sales, I've done operations, I've done IT. Even as a youth, I worked on a farm for a little while. So I have a lot of experience working in a lot of places. My most relevant, though, is technology related. And I chose to focus on the bridge between business, people, and technology. So it's really the combination of those three things together. That's kind of my background, so to speak. Why did
Got
I
it.
do that? That's a great question. I felt that my experience could help other businesses and individuals leverage technology to be more successful and to improve the employee experience. So that was what was important to me. And that's, I really kind of chose to go down that business/technology route.
Got it. And that was
Mhm.
actually going to be one of my next questions. But I guess to kind of dig deeper, what inspired you to focus on building and scaling IT related organizations?
That's a great question. I think the easiest way just to say that, to answer that question, is to say that I love building things. As a kid, I had Legos, blocks, and all kinds of stuff like that. And so there's a natural part of me that likes to kind of take things apart, deconstruct them, and then rebuild them. And so that's where my focus came from. I've been fortunate to have been part of several high growth companies and found during my experience that helping those companies grow, as well as the people themselves grow, aligned with my values. And those values are really just about striving to provide more in value than I take. And of course, my personal growth and promoting growth in others, whether that growth is in a company or whether that growth is an individual or a team or a department or anything like that. So that's where my inspiration comes from.
Got it. And you mentioned Legos. Is there any favorites that you like to build?
I think I don't want to date myself too much here, but when I was a kid, the Lego sets were a little different than they are now. But I particularly liked the space oriented sets, so that was kind of fun. But other than that, it was really just about taking the blocks and building them in some kind of a structure or a toy that was just interesting to me, and the flexibility of that is, I think, what I enjoyed. I could take it apart and build it differently. So I love that.
Got it. I know there's so many communities out there with Legos, so that's so awesome.
Yeah, I love Legos.
Yeah, that was so fun. And so thank you so much, Steve. And then
Sure.
how do you approach aligning an organization's missions, vision, and strategy, particularly in the tech industry?
Oh, that's fantastic. So the first thing you need to do is understand what it is. Like, what is that organization's vision, mission? And then what are the strategies that align to those visions and missions? If those are clear, then it's actually pretty straightforward. You just need to make sure that your actions and your resources, so the direction that you provide, the outcomes that you're seeking, that you guide people along those lines, so that whatever it is that they do, I can ask them this question: is what you're doing, does it support the vision and mission of this company? And if so, how? And if they can answer that quickly, then you're great. If they can't, then we have a problem, right? And then we have something that we can work on to improve. We can either improve the clarity of the vision and the mission, or we can realign our resources and our efforts to achieve that vision and mission. So that's really my approach, is understanding with complete clarity what the vision and mission are, developing strategies that support that, and then allocating resources, meaning of people, time, effort, money, whatever it happens to be, towards those, such that we get those vision and mission accomplished.
Got it. And I guess,
Yeah.
how do you figure out that mission? Is there a certain direction that you do that in?
Yeah, I think the easiest way for me to do that when I come into an organization is I really just ask the question, what's your vision, right? And if they just respond by parroting what the documented vision is, great. Explain to me what that means. And if they can do that, great. And if they can't, right, they can't remember it, or they don't know what the meaning behind it is, then we have to kind of go through some cycles to clarify that. It has to be really, really clear. I've been some organizations, and I'm sure it works for some, but I struggle with them. And I think a lot of other people do, where you walk into an organization and you ask them what their vision is, and it's a paragraph. And I'm like, that's just too much, right? It has to be very, very clear. So I think that, that's what's important, is really just clarifying that vision and mission. And then now you can develop strategies that support it. I'm not sure if I
Yeah.
answered your question.
You did. That's awesome.
Okay, great.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. And as you said, a lot of us believe as, business owners that we need a vision, but
Mhm.
possibly we use a system like, ChatGPT to write that vision. So
Sure.
maybe that's not our true vision. So I can see kind of what you're saying, where it's a whole entire paragraph and you're like, can you explain this? And then they can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too far on a tangent here, but I think it's such an important aspect of business, having having a clear vision and a mission associated with that, I'll take a moment just to elaborate on that a little bit. I think your vision is your aspirational statement, right? It's kind of like, how am I going to improve the world statement, right? You're probably never going to fully realize or achieve that vision, but that's your vision, right? It's kind of like the concept of world peace, right? It's unlikely everybody's going to be peaceful about everything all the time, everywhere. But we can aspire to that, right? And then now our mission, we're going to choose a way that we're going to go after that vision of world peace, right? So I think that that's really, really important. We can use things like ChatGPT. We can talk about that if you want, or other AI tools to help us sort of intuit or come up with ideas, right? And brainstorm. They're definitely great tools for that. But if you say, hey, I'm a technology company, please write me a vision. Yeah, that's probably not going to work out for you. So,
Right.
yeah.
100%. And Steve, can you provide an example of a successful alignment you've achieved in one of your recent projects?
Sure. God, there's a lot of examples, but probably the simplest one that I can do in the time allotted here is to talk about, there was a company who decided that it was important to increase their geographical expansion, right? They wanted to move into other markets, into other physical areas from where they were currently located. So the company's vision and mission informed their strategy, right? They said, here's our vision, here's our mission, and our strategy to achieve that was we need to expand our footprint geographically. So to align and support to that initiative, or basically I just needed to think in that context. What that meant as a technology leader, as an IT leader, as a person coming in and saying, I'm going to develop some strategies to achieve that, is thinking in that context. Now I have a guideline for myself. So basically what we do is, while we were building the architecture for this company to grow, we had to consider various things. Integration compatibility, right? So it needs to integrate with systems that may not be here in this geography, right? In this location. So for example, if it was international, I need to make sure that any systems I choose will integrate with systems in Europe, EMEA, APAC, whatever, right? So I have to consider that. I have to start considering things like compliance requirements for those. I have to consider things like language and currency differences, so on and so forth. So that vision and mission helped me define the strategy, help the company define the strategy. And then therefore it helped me to actually say, okay, well, now I have some boundaries, right? I have some guardrails that I need to stay within to help me make the right choices for this company so that it can not only be successful now, but be successful in the future. So that alignment helped improve things like delivery time, right? Now I've eliminated a bunch of things that I don't have to consider anymore. I've honed in or clarified the things that I did have to consider, all those things I just mentioned. And then it provides a much better experience, right, for all the end users of the company. Now they know that the system integrates. And so now, the company can accept euros as well as dollars. So things like that.
That's awesome. And then what do you believe are the key qualities of effective leadership in the IT sector?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. I think the concept of leadership really spans kind of any sector, right? Or any particular. So being a leader is being a leader. Now, of course, you might have knowledge that's relevant in your domain, whether it's technology or manufacturing or healthcare or whatever it happens. That certainly makes sense. But effective leaders, in my opinion, do one thing above all other things: is they put people first. Right? We don't lead machines, right? We lead people. And so, you do have to know processes and technologies and tools. Those are all important and necessary, but the people need to come first. So that is a key quality for effective leadership. If leaders have a genuine desire to build people up and support them, then those teams are going to become more competent, more capable, and more confident. And that builds trust. And any team that has trust in it will outperform any team that doesn't have trust, regardless of their education level, their compensation level, or whatever. So, I think really building trust through focusing on people first is the key to leadership.
Got it. No, I totally 100% agree with you.
Love that.
It's very, very important. At the end of the day, if you, without the people, like you don't really have a business. So, how do you foster leadership within the organizations you work with?
So, I mean, every organization is different. Some have different challenges and different strengths. But overall, I'd say there's probably two major factors for leadership from my perspective. And one is autonomy, and the other one is mentorship or mentoring. So, if you do the work up front to make sure that people understand what the outcomes that are expected, then you can provide them the opportunity to deliver that autonomously. So, if there's a manager or an individual contributor, an engineer, or a salesperson or whatever, and they understand what's expected of them, and you're providing the resources, whether that's training or material or whatever it happens to be, and you say, this is what you need, you let them go do it. That fosters leadership. And that way people will lead themselves because they know what's expected of them. It's really, really clear. But you're also saying, I trust you to do this. Right? I'm giving you everything you need. Now, if you have trouble, you come back. I'm supportive of you. I'm here to remove roadblocks for you or to help provide you with resources that you might need to be successful. But it's really up to you. And so I think that concept of autonomy fosters leadership. Of course, mentorship is absolutely key. Providing someone with guidance and encouragement. It's a powerful tool for personal and professional growth. Interestingly enough, not only for the person receiving that mentorship, but also for the person providing it. I can't tell you how much I've learned, by helping support others and encouraging others. And I learn new things, not only about them, but about whatever the process happens to be. And of course, myself too. So yeah, I would say probably, autonomy, providing autonomy for people and providing mentorship is really what's going to make a foster leadership in an organization.
Got it. And sometimes I feel like you can learn more, kind of what you just mentioned. You can learn more coaching someone.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when teaching someone, you have to have a better understanding of that because you have to explain it to someone else.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what's interesting is that, I've had a couple of executives, but there's one in particular, I won't mention their name, but I was very fond of them because they taught me a lot. And one of the things that was really interesting, and it's not unique, but I appreciate that they said this to me, is that they said, explain it to me like I'm 5, right? And it really forced me to boil things down to its simplest level. And it was a skill that I started to develop over time. I'm still working on it. I'm not 100% there, but it's something that became important to me. So to your point, we learn by helping other people. And then now we can reciprocate by extending that along to somebody else. So yeah.
That's very, very true. Thank you, Steve. And so of course, what are some of the most impactful technology solutions you've implemented to improve productivity?
I think tools are tools, right? We talked about a little bit earlier about putting people first, and I think that's really important. And so when I think about things like technology solutions, it's hard to say. I think the most important thing that I could respond with to that would be architecture. It's not actually a specific tool or a technology, but it is a solution and an approach and often a framework. And I think that's really important. As you focus on architecture, if you focus on systems and integrations and solutions that are designed with an architectural mindset, right? Like I have a big picture and I'm going to build the foundation. It's like building a skyscraper, right? Like I can't start with the top floor, right? I got to start with the bottom, and I got to say, like, wait, how tall is this building going to be, or how tall do I want it to be? And I got to build a foundation that's going to support all the weight of that building and all the loading and everything like that. So that concept of the architectural mindset is much more valuable than any individual tool might be. We actually want the flexibility to be able to swap tools out as necessary, and that's a lot easier when we've got a good architectural mindset. So yeah, and if you do it in the right way, you're much more likely to align to business needs and increasing the operational overhead without increasing the operational overhead associated with those systems, integrations, or solutions. So there's no real one technology solution that's right for every situation, but every situation can benefit from an architectural mindset. And so to me, that's where I would put my focus in that kind of like most impactful.
Got it. So pretty much you're saying depending on the business's needs, it could change. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we just kind of pick a particular application, right? Or if we pick a particular, I don't know, pick a SaaS product, any of a SaaS product. If you're kind of like, oh, I'm at Salesforce, right? Like, so a CRM. So, okay, Salesforce, big Salesforce. And some people would say, I'm sure Salesforce would say this, we're the best. You should have us. Nobody's better. But that may not be appropriate for some organization. So, the scale, it might not scale. It might be too costly. There's all kinds of reasons why that might not be appropriate for particular organizations. So instead of focusing on what the end tool is and trying to shoehorn it into my needs, if I really say like, well, what is important to me? Let's identify that. And then let's build that infrastructure. And I'm sorry, the end foundation to support whatever I want to put in there. So using that Salesforce example, maybe I need to make sure that I well document all my sales processes very well and understand where I am today and where I might want to go tomorrow. I'm not going to do Salesforce today, but I'm going to architect it in such that in 5 years, maybe I'm big enough that I will outgrow my current solution. And then shifting to Salesforce, which has now become the right answer, is much easier because I understand where I am today and I've gone into it with the mindset that I can grow because it's interchangeable, kind of like Legos.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And when you said that, there was a long time ago that I sold insurance and I worked for a brokerage. So would you say you're more like a brokerage where you're for IT? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
In terms of myself?
Yes.
That's an interesting question. I wouldn't necessarily characterize myself as a broker, but I can certainly broker deals. And what I mean by that is that throughout my experience, I've developed relationships with a lot of different vendors, for example. And so, I know who to call for the right professional services, depending on the size of the organization, depending on what their needs are, depending on what tools and applications need to be integrated, so on and so forth. So in that way, I can broker deals between companies, but my focus really isn't being compensated for brokering that deal. Some companies that's what they're about, right? They say like, oh, well, I'll help you find the right tool and I'll get a cut either from you or from the other company or from both. That's not really what I do. What I help companies do is develop a strategy and an approach for them to be successful based on their targeted trajectory. And so a lot of companies, it's hard for them to justify, at least initially, spending money on IT leadership or technology leadership. There's always a feeling like, oh, I could just buy this stuff myself online, right? Like SaaS, it's like, and so the concept of shadow IT itself has become shadowy because it's much more approved of than it was in the past. But, I think that as operating as an advisor, I'm able to offer companies an opportunity to gain a competitive advantage that they might not otherwise be able to afford. If you're a company of 100 people, you're probably not going to go out and hire a C-suite technology person. It's just too expensive. And you probably don't need it, right? But if you can have somebody come in who's experienced and say, I'm going to help you get where you want to go. I'm going to help you develop the plans. And then eventually when you need somebody, you'll be handing that person something to start with. My observation has been a lot of like technology executives and high-level technology leadership end up walking into a company that needs a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But it's preferable if it doesn't need quite that much work. Like if the foundation is strong, we can just start adding floors to it, so to speak, to kind of go with my analogy. It also allows me to remain independent. So again, not really like a broker, because a broker would imply that I'm focused on these providers. I'm not really like that. So it allows me to remain independent and objective, operating in the enterprise's best interest as opposed to my best interest.
Understood. And I actually like that a lot.
Yeah. It's important. It's important. Yeah. I think it's the kind of thing where, for example, I've done a lot of physical expansions around the world. And unfortunately, I was never able to find one low voltage provider that could just go anywhere in the world. Right? It's just unreasonable, right? There's too many different variables that come into play, I think. There's a couple out there that'll do it, and all they're really doing is they're subcontracting the local providers. So the point here is that, by understanding what the needs are and establishing relationships with people all over the place and standardizing the format that we submit the request, and it made it a lot easier for just to go to other providers in country or in state or in city or whatever it happened to be. So Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That really excited me, Steve. So I think that's so awesome that that's something that you help businesses do.
Thank you.
Yes, no, I'm sure it is. And then how do you ensure that these solutions also enhance the human experience within the organization?
Well, I think, again, the first thing we need to remember from my perspective is that technology is a tool, right? So whether you're on a desktop computer or you're connecting through a network infrastructure, or you're leveraging ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever, AI tool or whatever, they're tools, right? They're tools. They're useless without the person. So they're not, they help us achieve things, but they're not the thing that we want to achieve in and of itself, right? We don't buy computers just to have them. We buy them to use them as tools. So I think that's the first thing, is the way to ensure these solutions enhance the human experience is to understand that these are tools. And the best way to ensure that tools improve the human experience is to approach them from a human perspective, right? So like, why am I providing this tool? What do I expect to get out of it? Right? What problems is it going to solve? What are the problems that the people have? Right? So that's really important. Understanding those challenges and what people experience in their work, and then aligning the tool directly to the challenges is the best way forward. What I see a lot, or often enough, is we're putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. That's the best, so we're going to buy that. And then, here, I bought you the best, and you're like, well, that's not the best for what I do. Right? It's not helping me. Now I have to learn a whole new thing, and I only want to use 12% of it. And so you kind of overspent, and now you made my life more difficult because I have to relearn this thing. So again, just really focusing on aligning that tool directly to the challenges of the human to make sure that the tool fits. Right.
Got it.
So, often solutions are aligned to perceived challenges or inefficiencies rather than actual human experiences.
Got it. No, and as a small business, I totally understand that. We've had many of those struggles, so I completely understand. And so, what are some of the common challenges you face when building and scaling IT organizations?
Yeah, great question. I think a big challenge is pacing. And what I mean by pacing is you want to be able to move fast enough to keep up with the business, ideally just a little bit ahead of it, but not too far ahead of it, but not so fast that you leave the business behind, right? So the business won't tolerate that for very long at all. So, an IT organization that significantly outpaces its business, right, it was likely to alienate their end users and deliver solutions to problems that don't exist yet. I'm going to buy you this best thing. Yeah, but I don't need the best thing. I need the thing that works for the problem I have today. And so that creates actually an efficiency problem. Conversely, an IT organization that falls behind the business is likely to lose the trust of the end users and create a negative environment, right, for employees to work in. Basically, your customers, the employees, are not going to be happy with you because you're not servicing their needs, and you're constantly trying to catch up. So all your IT staff is unhappy, and they just burn out, right? And then around and around you go. So the point is like, I think one of the biggest challenges in scaling an organization is pacing, to make sure that you're going at the right pace. You're moving quickly enough to keep up with the business's needs, maybe a little bit ahead to be proactive, right, as a strategic partner to the organization, but not too far ahead, and certainly not too far behind.
Got it. So it's a balance. I get that.
It is absolutely a balance. That's right.
Got it. Awesome. And then how do you address and overcome these challenges?
Yeah. This probably will resonate with a lot of people, yet it seems to be one of the things that's most challenging. If you want to maintain strategic alignment, you have to establish and maintain relationships across the enterprise. So if you're an IT person, for example, let's say you're an IT manager of a relatively small company, you have to maintain the desktop computers and provide help desk support, and you have to make sure the network is working, and maybe you're in charge of managing AWS instances, or who knows what, right? But if you really want to be successful, and this obviously carries across the board, you really need to make sure that you're having regular conversations with accounting, right? Finance, HR, the executive team, sales, customer success, workplace experience, facilities, like any of these organizations that happen to exist. You need to be ongoing conversations with those people and those teams to understand, what are your needs, what are your challenges, what's working for you, what's not working for you. And by constantly having those conversations and establishing and maintaining those relationships, You're going to get a really good understanding of what they need. And you're going to be able to focus your attention accordingly. If you need more resources, for example, I can't do all the things that the business says that it needs. It's a lot easier to get those resources when you can demonstrate, hey, I understand the challenges of our sales organization. They've told me that they need this. I asked them, if I give you this, how will that be a positive result for you? Oh, I'll probably be able to increase sales by 20%. If you can get the sales organization to say, I can increase sales by 20%, if you give IT the money that they need, they're going to give you the money you need. So you see my point there. So my point is, again, the best way to overcome those challenges is really to maintain relationships across the enterprise.
Got it. Understood. And then when you were sharing that with us, Steve, I was just wondering, like, is there a particular customer that you work with?
There's not one particular customer. You mean like a customer persona or one particular company or
persona?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I find that my sweet spot tends to be in like, I would go from seed to late stage would be my preference, although I really enjoy working with some of the smaller companies. So I would say my sweet spot for myself is probably in the 1 to 500 range. I'm sorry, 100 to 500.
Got it.
Employees. So, and it would generally be any company that leverages some level of technology, some significant level of technology in order to achieve their business goals. So, the interesting thing for me is that that scope is growing, right? 10 years ago, I might have been able to say, well, software companies, maybe hardware manufacturers, things like that would be tech companies, but probably not agriculture. Now I can probably say, actually, that would totally apply to agriculture. I mean, if you own a family farm and you have 50 employees and more hands, there's a lot of technology solutions out there that you could be using, to help you become more efficient and to monitor your crops and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, I would say just fast growing companies in the 100 to 500 employee range would probably be my sweet spot. That's where it's really fun. It's really exciting.
Understood. Yeah. It's great to know. And that way, when our audience is listening to this as well, they know how they can help you. Yeah. And then, so of course, what are some emerging trends in technology do you believe that will have the biggest impact on businesses in the next few years? Got it.
Okay. Well, the big elephant in the room, I guess, maybe, again, mixing my metaphors there, but the obvious answer is artificial intelligence. Right. So, that's certainly a technology trend that will have a big impact on businesses in the next few years. We're only scratching the surface right now. It's an incredibly useful tool that is yet to demonstrate its actual value, in my opinion. So we're only at the beginning of this transformation, but I think it's clear it's going to have a significant. Right now, I see AI as a productivity booster. So while it's likely to completely automate some things that humans do, I think it's equally likely that it's going to align our work by helping us to bootstrap ideas more quickly, right? So we talked a little bit about that earlier. I've got an idea. You can use AI to brainstorm that idea and get it moving much more quickly and iterate faster. Now that I have my idea, I can iterate on it more quickly and shine a light on more potential pathways to achieve our goals. So AI is an obvious answer. So having said that, I feel compelled. I feel like I got to give you something else because everybody's going to say AI, right? AI. I think that the concept of the Internet of Things is something that will continue to grow. I think that's a technology that will really continue to grow. Our perception right now is that we have, devices in our house that we talk to turn the lights on and play some music. And that's interesting. It certainly is interesting. I use it. I think it's fun. But at the same time, major industries, manufacturing, healthcare, agriculture, transportation, these industries are increasingly leverage interconnected device to gain new insights, collect data, to control systems, so on and so forth, and improve productivity and service delivery. So I think that's something that's also up and coming.
Got it. Oh, yeah. The last few weeks, everyone's talking about AI. So thank you for extending that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So how should an organization prepare for these changes that are happening?
Well, let's take it back to the beginning. You got to have a clear vision of where they're headed, right? So all of these things, even these kind of incipient technologies, these emerging technologies of AI and Internet of Things, and there are many, many others. It's about choosing the right tool for the right job. And you can't choose the right tool if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, right? I can sell you the best hammer in the world, but it's not going to help you cut wood. So, it's less about the tool until you understand what that vision and mission is. What am I trying to accomplish? So that's how an organization should prepare for those changes, is to be really clear on where they're headed, and then they'll find the right tools. That way it can actually go. I mean, imagine if you went into, a sales organization and you said, hey, I want to buy your product. I think, how can it help me do X? Because you have clarity on what X is. Now you've put the onus on them to describe and explain how it is that their tool can help you better, right? And then now you can test and validate or verify. But anyway, once you have that level of clarity, you'll be able to identify the challenges and the inefficiencies, which in turn is going to help you identify the right tools and changes. So yeah, that clarity on that vision is incredibly important.
Got it.
It really drives all the decisions that you make down the line.
Understood. So as we talked about at the beginning, the importance of having a vision, and that way you can have a clarity of where you're going.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You got it.
And then how should you stay updated with latest developments in technology and leadership?
Gotcha. Well, I mean, first and foremost is you got to stay curious and inquisitive, right? You constantly have to ask those questions. Like, what is this thing I just heard about? What are these new whatever, right? So stay curious and inquire, ask questions online, ask questions of colleagues and friends and so on and so forth. Whether you're asking about what their problems are or whatnot, or you're asking about some new thing that they did, inquire. They say something that kind of piqued my interest, ask. So that curiosity and inquisitiveness is going to be very, very helpful in helping you keep up to date, because you might find that somebody else's need is similar to your need and they found a solution. So why go searching for it all over again when they might have some insight that would be helpful for you? The second thing is really related to we talked about a little bit before. You're asking a lot of great questions here. There's a lot of synergy in the questions you're asking. So thanks for asking them.
Of course.
Establishing and maintaining relationships is key. It's amazing how much you can learn over a cup of coffee, right? Or over lunch, or having a great conversation, on a podcast or something like that. It really kind of makes you think and you become aware of new things. And so, establish and maintain relationships personally and professionally. That's a great way to stay up to date, because the way you're tapping into the knowledge of a lot of people instead of yourself. And of course, there's the seeking out of new information from various resources, right? Whether you read tech blogs or listen or watch podcasts or, join groups or things like that. Those are some good ways to networking.
Got it. And I honestly, interviewing, multiple different, IT professionals every week, I learned so much, which is so awesome about technology.
Brilliant thing you've got going here, Shatoya.
Thank you.
It really creates an opportunity. I love talking about it. I hope that comes across. But
yeah, of course.
It's amazing because it makes me want to do it, because I'm like, wow, imagine somebody talking about this to me 2-3 times a week. Oh, that'd be fantastic. I would get so much information. So exactly, like, that's good. You've established a relationship, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's so far I've learned so much. So thank you. And I was curious because you did share, a lot of tips on how to stay updated, but is there something particular that helps you personally?
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, it really is about establishing and maintaining those relationships. So for example, I've worked, for a number of companies over my years and established a lot of kind of coworker relationships. But even now, when I'll reach out to people, right? And I'll keep their contacts in the forefront of my mind. And so kind of like, oh, hey, Joe, like we haven't talked in a while. How would you like to go get coffee? Mm-hmm. Right. Or maybe I'll bump into somebody somewhere, because I like to kind of go out and get coffee or lunch or whatnot. And hey, we should have lunch together. So that really is the most effective way from my perspective, is really just interacting with people. Nothing beats talking with a human from my perspective. So
agreed.
That's the most effective.
Yeah. No, totally. And just curious, Steve, what advice would you give aspiring technology advisors and CIOs looking to make an impact in the industry?
Boy, it's tough. When I hear the word advice, I'm like, I get a little shy about providing advice. Like, wow, do I want to provide advice here? Am I qualified to provide advice here?
Yes.
But I guess I appreciate that. Thank you. I guess I would say, again, there's a lot of overlap to these questions that you're asking. Relationships are going to play a big part in your success, right? So, if you're aspiring to become a technology advisor or CIO, or even, I'm aspiring to move up, right? To be advanced, or to get the new job, or to work at the other, whatever it happens to be, knowing people is going to be your best bet. I mean, this is a pretty proven fact, especially for job seekers. it's more who you know than anything else, right? Because there's lots of very qualified people out there, but people hire people they know first. If they don't know anybody that fits the role, then they'll go out and seek, somebody else that they don't know. So again, relationships. Beyond that, I mean, I think that if you're really starting to look at talking with more executive level people, your ability to communicate effectively, right? Like starting with the end, which is, this is my recommendation, right? As opposed to telling a long story up front, but this is my recommendation and this is why I recommend it. And then they'll ask for clarifying information. So again, that's an example of communicating effectively and the ability to influence others. That doesn't mean coerce or manipulate. That just means the ability to influence them, to get them to think about things and to take action on their thoughts there are absolute requirements. So those are skills that I would recommend developing. And above all, of course, it's like be humble, be honest. You don't know everything, right? I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. So be humble about what you can do. Be honest about yourself, to yourself, and with others. And again, strive to provide more value than you receive in compensation.
Got it. No, and I totally agree. Building relationships is huge. And then also, as you said, knowing that you don't know everything and that's okay.
Yeah. You don't. Nobody does.
Right.
And I love the way you said that. You don't know everything, but it's okay. It's okay. That's the human state. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing, Steve. And then are there any, of course, are there any specific projects you are currently working on that you would like to share with us?
Oh boy. I mean, my current project, honestly, right now, my current project is taking some time for myself. Mm-hmm. It's the summer and, I'm trying to spend a little bit of time enjoying my home, my hometown, family, things like that. It's really important. So that's kind of the thing. I mean, I would encourage everybody to find a way to do that. I know that a lot of people, I can't take a sabbatical or I can't take a month off. I totally get it, right? I really, really understand that. But find some time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour a week, something is really making sure to find some time. So, but that's really where I am right now. That's the most interesting project right now is my personal well-being and personal development. And so that's really, I could go on and on for any number of the topics that we talked about today. And I can talk about all kinds of projects and those are important to me, but nothing's more important than that. And so sometimes even just a little bit each day to step back and reflect on your life is important. So that's kind of how I'd answer that question.
No, and I agree. I think it's very, very important. And sometimes being in the hustle, you forget the importance of taking time off. But during the times that you are in the hustle, is there any examples that you rewind? Is there any examples that you'd like to share with us?
Examples of
like when you're in the hustle, like when you're in the hustle and when you are able to take some time off, like, is there any examples that you'd like to share with us on how you're able to relax or what you do to relax?
Oh, got it. Yeah. So you're basically saying like, well, what do you do for fun besides work, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of been an evolution for me. I've become a little bit more of an outdoor person. Not that I ever disliked being outside, but now I'm more deliberate about that. And so what I like to do for fun that helps me relax, I run a little bit. I walk a lot. I definitely do exercises. I love to kind of go places. I'll go into a city or downtown or something like that and just kind of absorb the culture around me, right? And I really enjoyed that. That's relaxing for me and it kind of helps me get different perspectives and different insights. So that's fun. Other than that, I mean, I like traveling. I enjoy going places, even just kind of relatively local places. I don't have to travel across the world or anything like that, but those are fun. And they're kind of like a good opportunity for me to come up with a different perspective. I find that stepping back often gives you, I mean, you can even imagine it, gives you a different perspective. So anyway, I'll stop going down that route and just say, I really enjoy getting out, talking with people, exercising, traveling, and experiencing the environment. That's fun for me.
Got it. No, awesome, Steve. And I'm very similar. So I'm so glad to hear that. So thank you for sharing that with us. Sure. Is there a particular topic you're passionate about that we haven't covered yet?
Oh, man. I mean, there's a lot of things that are important to me. We've covered quite a few of those today. I mean, like putting people first, right? There's a topic that I'm passionate about. Clear vision, mission, strategy. Clearly, that's come up several times. That's a topic I'm passionate about. Architectural mindset, topic I'm passionate about. Effective communication and relationships. Organizational design. We didn't really talk about that too much. I don't know that I'm passionate about it, but I do feel strongly that it's important, right? You don't want to be haphazard with your organizational design. There needs to be a reason that people are organized in a certain way and that they have the responsibilities that they have, and that there's a reporting and support structure that exists for a reason, and so on and so forth, whether that's, regulatory compliance or it's checks and balances or who knows, whatever. But organizational design, we didn't really talk much about, but that's interesting to me. I could talk for hours on any one of these. So, but I won't. So I'll just say the one that I just added was organizational design. That's interesting.
Got it. And just in case our audience does not understand, what does that mean?
I mean, it means a lot of different things depending on who you're talking to. But the way that I describe it really is, if I look at the organization holistically, so if I step back from the organization and I look at the big picture of it, who are the players? Who are the people in here? What are their roles and responsibilities? And so why is this person here at this company? What do they do? And how does what they do both support the vision and mission, there it is again, but also support the people that they're working with, right? So are they a member of a team? How do they support their boss? How does their boss support them? How do they support these other teams over here? So are there components, for example, of IT that support finance? And in what way do they do that, right? And so on and so forth. So it's really about understanding all these people and how they fit in the big picture of the company, both with each other and holistically as well. So that to me is organizational design, and it's intentional, right? We don't want to you don't want to follow what somebody else did because it might not be appropriate for you. And you certainly don't want to everybody just do whatever you think is best. That's not going to work, unfortunately.
Right.
Put some guardrails up for that.
Yes, no, that's very true. And what is the most important piece of advice you would give to business leaders looking to align their technology strategy with their overall mission?
Yeah. But since you said the mission word, I'm going to say the vision word. Again, the most important thing a business could do is clearly articulate their vision and mission and values, right? So you should be able to walk up to any employee, any person in the company, and you should be able to say, like, what's our vision? And they should be able to tell you what the vision is. What's our mission? This is what our mission is. What are the values of this company? These are our values. And what do those mean? What does our vision mean? What does our mission mean? What do these values mean? Right? I can say be open. That's a value, right? What does that mean? And what's the context of it? So I think, again, the most important piece of advice I give to any business leaders looking to align their technology is you got to get clear on that, right? Vision, mission, strategy, values, those things, clarity, right? If any of that is too lengthy or too convoluted or too complex to remember, it's going to be incredibly difficult to align those strategies or departments or individuals to them. So, kind of thinking that question of like, okay, how am I going to align this technology strategy with the overall mission? Well, I got to understand what the mission is. Driving that is the most important.
Got it. No, that's awesome. And then how can our listeners get in touch with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah. I think probably the most ubiquitous concept of a business card I can think about these days is really just LinkedIn. So just find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there. It's not super complicated. I do check it from time to time. So if I got a DM, I probably will respond to you. I even try to respond to those in-mail ones just so you guys don't lose your credits, even if it's not appropriate, not applicable. Sorry, not applicable to what I'm doing. But yeah, I would say LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me.
Got it. Awesome. And that's actually where we connected on LinkedIn.
That is.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a great tool, for a lot of purposes. And so I appreciate that it's there. I very much appreciate the fact that you reached out and that we're having this conversation now. I enjoy it.
Awesome. Me too.
Hopefully my energy is coming across. I'm very excited to have the conversation.
Steve, you've actually excited me with this conversation. So thank you for that.
I love it.
And so, no, it was a pleasure to speak with you for the 45 minutes that we did chat.
Holy cow, really? Well, that's impressive.
But yes, super excited to, learn a little bit about you today, Steve, and kind of how you can help our listeners. But everyone, thank you so much. And we'll be back next week.
Thank you.